Hello, everyone. I am your host, Tommi Vincent of In Her Words, a Tommi Vincent podcast. And today we have joining us at the table Ashley Blackwood. Ashley is the founder and chief strategist of the Sports Publicist. She has represented clients such as the Allen Houston Foundation, Carmelo Anthony, the National Football League, and so many more. A fun fact about Ashley: she worked alongside Judy Smith, the real-life Olivia Pope, at her firm known for crisis management, and it was the basis for the ABC TV show Scandal. Ashley, welcome to In Her Words. I'm so grateful that you are going to stay a while with me.
I'm so excited, Tommy. Listen, to-do list, this was on the top of it. Come on. Excited, super excited.
So, one of the very first question that I have for you is, who is Ashley Blackwood in your words?
In my words, I am a believer. I am a wife. I am a entrepreneur, I guess. Um, Listen, every day, Lord. But I'm a businesswoman. I'm a student. I am a creator. I am a passionate person, all things sports. And I'm a truth teller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the first segment. And this first segment is food is love. As you know, I am a private chef, and it is how I love people. Like if I'm cooking for you,
Mhm.
then you know that I love you. And so I have a few questions here. The first one is, what food best describes your personality and why?
Ooh, and I thought about this, okay? Um, so I went with the dessert because I'm sweet, right? Like I try to be sweet. But key lime pie is my food of choice. Here's why. Hear me out. So I'm from Florida. Most people don't know that. Born and raised in Florida. But even though it is the unofficial state dessert, it is enjoyed by those all across the world, right? Simple ingredients because I feel like I'm simple, but impactful flavor, bold flavor because I'm bold. And it's one of those desserts where it's hard to get wrong, right? Like it's hard to mess it up, right? And so like just by nature of being in communications and in sport, um, I find myself giving a lot of grace and receiving a lot of grace. And that dessert, it gives a lot of grace to those who try and make it. If I can make it, anybody can make it. So key lime pie is my answer. Sweet, a little tangy with a little boldness, and just for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Has food ever been healing for you?
Oh man. Yes, and this is a very thoughtful question too, because I really had to think about what does healing mean, right? Like, how do I consume food in a way that is cathartic and that leaves me satisfied, fulfilled, and healed, right? That's healed. And I didn't actually think about one moment, but kind of my childhood experiences around dinner. Um, we grew up in a household where if you were in the house at 7:30, we were having dinner at the dinner table. And as a young person, it was the most annoying thing in the world, right? Um, if you were watching television, doing homework, just getting home from a basketball game or whatever sport or extracurricular activity, you literally had to wash your hands and make your way to the table. And again, it wasn't something that I enjoyed doing at the time, but looking back over my fondest memories, and the conversations that we had, the time we spent together is probably the single most impactful thing that our family did consistently. And it's also something that I've kind of implemented in my household, even though it's just my husband and I. We try and make it a priority to sit down over food, over a meal, and have a conversation. And one thing that I distinctly loved about it, even as a young person, was that my grandparents would be a part of the conversation, and my siblings who are younger would be a part of the conversation. Of course, my parents would be a part of the conversation, and it was that generational conversation that happened, that we just don't get a lot of anymore. And so, like, even now that I'm back in Florida with my family, those dinners are still so important when I can make them. But just having that cross generational conversation was so impactful in healing, because you get so many perspective, you get that thought leadership from above and below. And it was something that, regardless of what you were going through, it was a space for you to hold and hold your truth there. So,
Mm-hmm. That's
yeah.
beautiful. The table is extremely important to me, and what I consider it as, and how we talk about it here in Vincent Country, is it's a pulse check. It's the opportunity for the pulse check, and you don't know when someone is in need of resuscitation unless you can get before them and you can look them in their eyes. And we can disguise and mask, how we're feeling and where we're at in our life on the phone, even on FaceTime. Like, I could put on with you for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and make it seem like all is well. But when you sit down and you break bread and you get into conversation, you can't hide, because eventually what's in you is going to come out. Because when you start eating that food that is filled with love, and perfect love casts out fear, so the food goes in and it's pouring love on the inside, then that fear is going to have to come out. So whatever it is that has you, weighed down, it's going to come out. And as a family, it's great to be able to have that multi-generational perspective. And you nailed it. Like, we are missing those conversations in such a great way. And you can see it playing out culturally, that there is perspective that is so one-sided, and it doesn't involve the breadth of life that it could have when you have the generations contributing to it, because experience develops wisdom. So if you haven't lived a thing, ain't no way you could really speak about the solution to the thing and how you can navigate through it. And so around the table where the defenses are dropped, and we really in this space of loving each other, even tough conversations, they just go down so much better when you're doing it around food.
I agree. And that's why I love your platform too, because it's so symbolic of what is necessary in a family, right? That gathering space, that gathering time. And to your point as well, like, it's missing. We need to get back to having those moments because of the impact that it has, beyond our years, beyond, just receiving.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity for you also to give your perspective and lay it on the table, lay it at the altar, right? And get that perspective from so many people who love on you, who care about you, who wants you to be successful. So, yeah, love it. You're absolutely right.
Does your family have an heirloom recipe that is passed down from generation?
We do. And it's not key lime pie. It's actually sweet potato pie. So here's the story behind that. During the holiday season, there is a person who makes pies for every household, in the family. Makes sweet potato pie for every household in the family. Now, there's only one person in each generation who holds the recipe.
Wow.
Mhm. And I am the millennial that has the recipe. And so like as my great aunt is kind of maturing out of it, I have been charged with, getting my hands dirty a little bit so that my aunt and helping my aunt prepare the pies for everyone. It will soon then be my responsibility to take over for her as well. So it's one of those things. And my little sister is actually the generation underneath me that has the recipe. So there's only one person. I know it's very strange, but
Wow.
one person in each generation who holds that recipe, but they're responsible for making pies with the next generation for everyone around that holiday season.
Wow. So wait a minute. How many pies does this person have to put out?
Oh man. So it's only one per household, which is good.
Okay.
So you're unless people bring extra ingredients, right?
Yeah.
Unless there are special requests and extra ingredients, but it's about 15 to
Okay.
20 would be a good number for any holiday season, especially around Thanksgiving. And then sometimes you can get a little less if you're combining like holiday experiences. Like if I'm going to have dinner with
Mhm.
my parents, like they'll be like, "Oh, that's one."
Yeah.
um, but yeah, minimum of like 15 pies,
Okay.
minimum.
Wow.
Mhm,
I love that.
mhm,
That is I say cooking is the gift that keeps on giving.
mhm.
And by you, even passing it along, every single person in your family is experiencing
Yeah.
love from generations. Someone they may not have ever physically had an encounter with. However, they are encountering their love in every single bite of that sweet potato pie. I love that tradition. I love that.
Right? It's good. Listen, but the gag is that I wanted to be chosen for years. I wanted to be my generation, and my cousin did too. And I won, I think, because I'm just more responsible. So there are some people who are a little salty because they do not
Yes.
have the recipe. So it's a little sensitive sometimes. But then around the holidays, when it's your time to help prep or you have to be a part of the overall experience, you're not mad anymore. You're
Yeah.
not mad
Yeah.
anymore. You're okay. You're okay. hmm hmm
All righty. Let's get into segment two of our conversation where we're going to go deeper into you and who you are and what you have going on and what has made Ashley Blackwood. And the first question I have for you is what drives you?
Mm. Well, that's good. I think my family, I am such a connector in general. And I think the first connection is at home, right? So
Hmm.
just being an advocate for my family, standing up for what's right in general. We were always community people.
Hmm.
My dad worked at a rec center, didn't really realize that was a job. I thought it was just something we do, just like community service. I tell this story all the time. I didn't know that community service was an actual thing until I was doing my college applications. And they were just like, well, write down your service hours. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Right. They were like, oh, when you volunteer. And I was like, I don't, does not compute. And my dad was like, you volunteer at the church, you volunteer at the school, you volunteer at the rec center. And I was like, oh, because that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Like we feed
Yeah.
the homeless. Like I didn't know that was service work. I thought that was just something that we did as a family, right? Like we support our community, we support one another. So we show up, right? But I think what drives me the most is kind of that core, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that I believe in family. I think that family comes through the bloodline, but it also comes through relationship. And so I've been very fortunate to be connected with people that I consider family, regardless of how we were born into this world. And they're my motivation, right? They're the ones that kind of push me, encourage me, motivate me, drive me to do all the things that I do, and ultimately want to succeed because it's not me. I would sleep all day if it were just me. I would live a restful life if it wasn't for, like the drivers in my family who really planted a seed, but also who continue to push me forward. So
Mm-hmm.
I do it for my people.
How did you make the decision that you were going to have a concentrated focus in sports? In your
Mm,
profession, at least my experience anyway, um, professionals in your industry tend to be wherever the opportunity is. So they might have clients in sports, they might have clients, in entertainment, clients in business, and it's not really like focused in that way. How did
mhm.
you get to the space where you're like, no, sports is that's it for me?
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier how like food is like the ethos of your family. I say food and sport are the ethos of mine.
Okay.
Growing up, my dad was an athlete. He went to college and played football, and that was the extent of like his professional experience. But what he did bring back home was that community centric mind, right? Like he was the director of the rec center, but he empowered all the kids in our community. He's like the surrogate dad for everyone,
Mm.
to get off the streets, get into sports, be about your education because you couldn't play sports if you didn't have the grades. And so naturally growing up, I wanted to be just like my dad. I wanted to be just like the girls and guys, that were older than me that played on these teams that, represented the, Police Athletic League, which at the time
Mm.
is where my father
Pal.
worked.
Mm-hmm.
hmm I wanted to be like those people. And again, like we always were at games, we were always watching sports, like around food, around like just community. We were always engaged, whether it was on the little league level or the professional level. Like you had a game, we were there. You had a recital, we were there. Those were painful. But my sister was in chorus. We were there. But everybody else played sports. We were there because that's what we did. And so I knew I wanted to be in sports. I actually thought that I wanted to be like my dad, working at a rec center, until I went to college. And then I realized that sport had the ability to touch every facet of life. So if you wanted to be an accountant, you can do that in sport. If you wanted to be a lawyer, you can be that in sport. If you wanted to be a dentist, you can do that for athletes. There are
Mm-hmm.
just so many things that the ecosystem of sport provided, and I was so familiar with it, right? Because I grew up in it. Like, I didn't, again, I knew my dad had a job, but I didn't think it was a real job, right? um, there were also different people. I live in Florida, so football is huge in the state of
Mm-hmm.
Florida. There are so many people who are just a part of the ecosystem of football and basketball, and you're just like, wait, you can make a living doing this.
Yeah.
This is how you feed your family, type of thing. Oh, and you get to do it around such a spirited game, right? Regardless of what that game was, competition, all the things that come with, being an athlete or being in sport. Like you got to do it with the fanfare and all the cool elements. And so like as I went through college, I realized that I still wanted to be connected to sport and everything that I did professionally, but what vessel would I use? At the
Mm-hmm.
time, I thought it was going to be just straight marketing. So that's what I did. I applied for internships in marketing, and I got a marketing internship with the Knicks while I went to grad school at NYU. And what it taught me again is that even though marketing was this big beast in sport, like if you break it down to the marketing mix, there are so many opportunities for me beyond that. So I did community relations, I did public relations, and I think PR just really stuck with me because it was an opportunity to share the voices and the stories of the athletes, but also that would not be told, right? Like it was beyond the sports pages. I could tell about their family members. I can talk about their special projects. I can talk about what they do away from the court or the field. I could talk about the things that really matter to them. I could talk about situations and trauma that they may have experienced in a way that people would never know because they're such a beast on the court or the field.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really caught my attention. I think what really cemented it is when I decided to work outside of sports, though. When I went into the crisis space
Is
and
this
I got to work with, yes, I got to work with entertainers, I got to work with filming, I got to work with executives, politicians, and I was like, oh, I like it better over here. At least I know the beast that I'm dealing with, right? And again, there's so much magic in sport in general, right? I grew up in the Jordan era, so like I
Mhm.
used to watch so intently and try and literally mimic the things that he did as an athlete, and I just wasn't able to do it. And so like it almost augments your reality a little bit, right? And to be a part of it, to be a small itty bitty piece of how that magic comes to life is very cool for me. So I've been very fortunate, honestly, to make it a career. When I was coming up in college, sport management was actually very, very new, even though the
Mhm.
business itself wasn't new, which is very ironic, but the discipline of sport management was new. And people told me, no, you should definitely go to law school. You should definitely be an agent. That one track, Jerry Maguire type of
Mhm.
role, you should go for it. But as I experienced sport from an educational perspective and then lived in the actual industry and learned that there's so many unique things about sport and you could do a lot of things in this industry and still do something different every day, I learned that this is where I was supposed to be, especially dealing with outside people outside of sports. You think we're crazy? Man. Listen, stay here, stay here.
So, your profession requires you to shape and manifest the stories and successes of others.
Hmm.
In the process of being the guardian for others,
Mm-hmm.
how do you stay true to you?
Mm-hmm. That is a really good question. And a hard question. I think that in my 30s, I am a lot wiser and a lot more confident in myself. So it's a lot easier. I think as I was growing up in this industry, I accepted things as just being a part of the culture or things that I was too young enough to influence. But I've
Mhm.
always had a mouth on me. And one of my philosophies in life is I'll say it once and see what happens, right? I think that when I started to speak up about things that were important to me, I realized that I had champions in the room already. Um,
Mm.
the fear came from inside, right? Like, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to say something wrong. I'm too young. I look so young. People don't really care to hear from me. I'm the only woman in the room. I'm the only Black person in the room. I don't represent X, Y, and Z. But when I started to even just quietly speak up for myself, I realized that there were true advocates in the room who wanted to hear from me, and they put me in the room because they wanted to hear from me.
Mhm.
And I think that as I continue to speak up and to continue to assert myself in certain situations, I realized the value proposition, right? I didn't know that. They knew it. That's why I was
Mhm.
there. I didn't know it. And so I think that as a storyteller, who I believe my gift on earth is to share stories with people, of people with people. Um, I had to find my voice in that, and I think that I by far do not pretend like I've gotten here on my own. I've had some true champions, like some true advocates to really support me in those days when I didn't advocate like I do now. But also, I say this all the time: Black women will Black women, will Black will Black women. Even when I started my own company and started my own business, Black women put me at the table. Black
Mm.
women said, "Hey, I'll give you a chance." Black women, I remember I submitted a proposal, um, and the person received it. A Black woman received it. She picked up the phone and gave me a call. I'm not going to put her name out there, but she picked up the phone and gave me a call, and she said, I can't tell you what to charge me. And I'm not saying double the price, but I'm saying come close, because she knew something that I didn't know, right? Like I was undervaluing myself, right? So I have had so many allies and champions, Black women, of course, but
Mhm.
also others that have just truly been advocates and supported me throughout this journey. And so I chose sport because it kind of chose me. I chose to continue to advocate in this space because it's been a safe space for me. And I know that a lot of people don't have that type of journey in that experience. But my goal is, because I've had such a great experience in this world, in this ecosystem, to share that experience with others and bring people up with me. And I think that's why I'm committed to this space and I'm committed to this.
Mhm. So I watch you move, Ashley, and one of the things that I recognize about you is you are the gatekeeper for a lot of individuals that
Mm.
people will be like, "That's your client? That's your client?" Um, and you're very discreet about your clientele, where other people are like, any opportunity they can get to say, "Oh, that's my client," or they're sharing on social media, putting, and I see, I recognize that for whatever reason that they're doing that, to promote their business or whatever the
Right.
case may be. But why isn't it important to you to move like a stealth? That's what I'd be like, Ashley stealthing out here. Like, she, like, unless you catch her in a photo in the background where you like, girl, I saw you.
Oh
Why
my
is that
goodness.
important?
That is hilarious. Oh wow. Honestly, Tommy, it's not about me. It
Mhm.
never has been. It never will be. And I don't mean that to diminish the work that I do. Um, I think that God's purpose for my life, the purpose on my life, is to truly share the stories of others, and I can't get in the way of that.
Mhm.
And so I just feel like, and again, you're right. Like, it is a smart thing to promote your business. It is a smart thing to talk about your clients from the mountaintops. My clients even say to me, "Ashley, why don't you repost?" And I'm like, "Can you untag me, untag me?" Um, but it's never been about me. And I don't do it intentionally, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. It's just I'm so committed to the stories, the journeys, the brands of my clients, that if I have something to say, if I am, expressing, like, or promoting something from somebody, it wouldn't necessarily be, my first thought wouldn't be myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's about how do I elevate others? And again, I guess it comes from what people say is a servant heart. But my job on this earth is to serve others. My job is to allow people to see the God in me and
Mm-hmm.
through me. And that doesn't require me in my situation to put myself ahead of anything or anything I touch or anyone that I'm connected to. It's actually the reverse. My job is to make sure that I am giving them the mic, giving them the light, giving them the shine, because that's the purpose that I serve in the role that I typically serve in my client's life. And I also think that privacy is important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that
It's
one
underrated.
thing is so underrated. And I think that because I've had the great fortune of dealing with or working alongside some high profile individuals,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've seen the good, the bad, and the indifference. And I choose, I try and choose peace most of the time. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that just doesn't come with celebrity, right? That doesn't come with the limelight. That doesn't come with, the attention always being on you. And so I like walking in rooms and no one has a clue, has a clue who I am, what I do, or whatever, and just having a regular conversation with people, right? There are some people, they walk in the room and they're immediate, they know who they are, they know what they do,
Mm-hmm.
they take, and that's not peaceful for me.
Yeah.
That's not I'd rather literally connect with people because there's an energy, there's a commonality that exists between us, as opposed to connecting with people because they assume, or because of who my clients are, or because of what I can do for them. But just have that natural human connection is so important. So I don't even think about it, to be quite honest. When I was talking about, like, just being in rooms where others advocate for me, I've also been very fortunate that that happens in business as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I am connected to people because I'm connected to people, not because of what they can do for me. However, those people that I'm connected to will put my name in a conversation, right? They
Mm-hmm.
will they will be in rooms that are bigger than me, but not bigger than God, and say my name. And I'll get a phone call, not because I promoted it on social or that I was featured in X, Y, and Z magazine, but because I have a personal relationship with someone who knows the work that I do and has advocated for me to do that work in a room that is going to give me additional business. And I think that that is invaluable. And that's honestly how I've been so successful at my job, or in my career, is because of those connections. So I don't have to promote myself. I don't want to say I don't have to promote myself, because that's not that is quite the opposite of what I'm paid to do, right? um but I like my privacy. I like the fact that I can be in rooms and stand up for my client, as opposed to making it about myself. That's my job. That's my ministry. But also, I like the peace that comes with no one knowing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to explain it either, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you know, you know. If you don't, that's also awesome. But I still like to get to know you, right?
I have this I actually was just thinking about this morning.
hmm
Um I was with some friends the other day at an event that they invited me to. They invited me to this event.
hmm
It was a really nice event. And so we're in the room and she's like, "Oh, you know who that is, right? You know who that is, right?" And I said, "No, I don't know anybody." And then so she said it again. That's such. I said, "Didn't I just tell you I don't know nobody? Like I really don't like. I just don't. I don't. I don't case the landscape to know who people are, but I know people who introduce me to the right people that make sense for me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I don't feel the need to be that person, like knowing everybody. And um because when you are living life on purpose and you're moving forward and executing the steps that have been established for you, then everybody you need to know for what it is that you have been called to do, they'll meet you on that pathway at the appointed time. And so you don't have to force it. You don't have to, force life in that way. And I know that goes against a lot of what we're taught and how it's so important to, network, and I get that piece of things, but I haven't had to force anything in my journey. And I have, it's almost like I'm having to like push back on folks on that's not how I move. And I haven't had to move that way. And I'm not going to feel the pressure to succumb to it has to be done that way in order for it to be successful.
I completely agree. And Tommy, I feel the same way about you. Like, you just described how you move in a space. I see that, right? Like, one, you have an amazing presence in general. So when you walk in the room, you command the room as you should, right? Like, as you
Mhm.
should. You don't need to say, I'm this, I'm that, I have, I am, I can do this, I can do that. Because, like, again, if you're comfortable in your skin, like, it'll come to you. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and it has, you do the work that you need to do, and it'll always be given back to you tenfold. And so, like, that's how we have to roll. Like, it's not about attention seeking, it's not about promoting from the rooftop, it's not about all of those things, because what is yours will always be yours. And by you showing up, you're gonna get it. So you don't need to be like, hey, 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 right? Like, so
That
you
is
move.
not peaceful
It's
in
not.
your
And
words.
yes, and you move with so much grace and elegance, right? Like, we notice. You know what I mean? You're noticed. And it's not that you're doing it to be noticed. It's that, like, you're going to get the attention of the right people by doing the thing that is right for you 100% of the time. So you don't have to do that extra stuff. It's going to be given to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I feel like there's some element of some training and some, you know, Tommy, this, when you go in a room, this is the positioning you need to take. So let's go to this question right here. Can we talk about media training and why it is such a critical tool to access, for you to be able to access in order to not only, develop and build your brand, but also to stay true to your brand in every situation?
Absolutely. So I think any type of development is so important, right? Like, you can't be a doctor without going to school. You can't be an athlete without putting the proper training behind what you do in your profession. And I think that, especially in sports and when it comes to entertainers as well, like, they're thrown in front of a camera and expected to just deliver the line, deliver the message, know how to answer the question, especially young people too, right, who lack experience. And I also feel like that exposure is coming earlier and
Mhm.
earlier and earlier, right? So you have 10-year-olds being recruited for college institutions or being prospected to go to the pros. You have 8-year-olds who are
Mhm.
being filmed and asked questions pre and post games. And you have, like, this un- unprecedented access to these young people as well. And so I think in any type of situation, knowing as much as possible about what you're doing is probably the best way for you to have a good experience. And so media training is the same. Like, I've been meeting with a lot of young people. I've been training professional athletes, executives, and coaches for years now, kind of behind the scenes, right?
Mhm.
Um, but what has been kind of tried and true over the last couple of years is two things. One is that there's such a tumultuous relationship happening between media and the subjects that they're covering, or the people that they're covering, and the stories that they're covering. And this like fight that's happening doesn't necessarily need to exist, right? The object of any storyteller is to tell a good story with integrity, with the proper information, with the right intent, and with the right goal. And I think with talent, sometimes it feels different. It all sometimes feels like they're being attacked, they're trying to be set up, they're trying to get something out of them that they don't necessarily want to share. But that's not what the relationship was designed to be. And I think that as you train more through a media training experience, like, you get the tools, you get the understanding, you get the confidence that you need to answer tough questions, but also learn how to share your story the way you want it to be told. Not how people are telling you that, oh, you shouldn't say those type of words, or you shouldn't make those gestures, or get that Houston slang out. No, it's about really showing up as a whole person, whether your vernacular, or your speech pattern, or how you express yourself with your hands or your
Mm-hmm.
eyes. Um, they should serve you, and you should understand that those things, body language, eye contact, all of those things are so important, but they're not the whole story, right? And so building that confidence in people, especially our young people, is critical to building that relationship with media and making sure that their stories are being told the way that they want them to be told. And then the second part of that is, over the last, what, 2 3 years, we've gone to a virtual experience in a way
Mm-hmm.
that just didn't exist before. Obviously, technology has been a part of our lives and the social economy for quite some time, but really over these last couple of years, I've learned that people want access to this information very quickly, very succinctly, like refreshers before they're getting behind the podium, refreshers before they're going onto a set where they have to do a live interview. They want refreshers. And so even though I was doing these extensive trainings, whether it was with a team or whether it was with an individual, what they wanted was access to tools and resources real time, right? Like, if
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't get me on the phone, they want to be like, hey, what was that tip? How do you block and bridge? How do, like, what do I say here? What do I wear? What do I dress? And so I've also been working on a digital platform or classroom experience that share those tips with them, and share those tips and experiences to make their interview as seamless as possible. But it's not just about like an interview, right? It's also about, to your point, walking in a room and being comfortable with who you are.
Yes.
So you don't have to, shout it from the rooftop. You don't have to do these things to bring attention to you, but you allow your true light, your natural light, to shine, right? So we also like make you confident in who you are. So when you walk in that room, again, you are authentic to yourself, and what's yours will be yours because it will be drawn to you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just helping people understand that journey is very important. And again, like, I've been working really hard behind the scenes to kind of create tools that young people and older people can use without me hopping on a phone or a Zoom or getting on a plane to say, hey, this is better, this is this and that. Yes, you still have access to that with me, because that human connection is so important. But if you just want to log into an app, or you just want to pull up a video that says, how did Kobe get through a tough question like this? Or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how did someone I admire tackle such a hard question? I'm going to help you kind of bridge that gap. And so training is so important and so critical to any profession. And so when you're doing media or trying to grow your brand and you're in front of any type of public, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about this virtual platform that you are developing. Do you
Mhm.
have a timeline of when it will roll out and that people will have access to it? And if so, I mean, well, obviously there is, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it happens.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
how does someone access it if they want to be able to utilize the platform that you're offering?
Absolutely. So I have been testing and piloting it over the last 6 months.
Okay.
Um, I've done it with a WNBA team. I've done it with an NBA team. I've done it with collegiate athletes. I've done it with draft classes with multiple athletes from different parts of the world, with some international athletes as well. And so we've been testing several models, and I am excited to say that on January, February 2023 is when it's going to launch for public consumption. So if you're already my client, we've done it. You have access. You have access. You can pull it up anytime. We're working through some modules. Like, you have been putting in the work with me, putting in the time with me to kind of create this tool for you.
Hmm.
But we're actually, next week we start filming and planning the curriculum for the general public, for people who are not specifically an athlete or an executive in the sports space. So we're bringing out general content that
Mm.
everyone can use with the backdrop of sport as the example. So that'll be available Q1 2023.
Well, congratulations. I can't even imagine the level of preparation and work that's going into putting together this type of project, but congratulations on that. And just
Thank you.
being forward thinking and creating a way where people can access information without necessarily having to, let me see how I can say this. You know, when you work with someone in your profession, work with a publicist, and you are a part of their roster, there's an expense that comes along with that that everybody can't afford. But putting
Hmm.
together the platform that you're doing now, you're creating access to individuals who may not necessarily have the budget to,
Right.
bring someone to be this person for them, that type of gatekeeper. But this is access,
Yes.
and so kudos to you on doing that.
Thank you. And even bringing up that access point, I think that young people, again, who can't afford a publicist, or it's not a part of like where they are currently,
Mm-hmm.
will still have access to this. So we're piloting it in the NCAA, as well as some youth programs as well, because it's so important to establish those good habits at a young age. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, we do it for the pros, but there's something to be said about, again, that 10-year-old being recruited, like giving them the tips and tools to really navigate the media space so that they can create that privacy. They can also create those moments where, they become special moments, as opposed to something that could be trauma induced. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, like, giving that access to young people is so important to me. And we're also going to have like a youth experience as well, but that is to be determined. To be determined. Definitely 2023, but like, more so probably the summertime, for our young people to be engaged 100% on the platform. But it all can be found on my website, thesportspublicist.com. And again, we will be promoting this tool. We will be promoting this tool. Hallelujah. Glory to God. My face may not be on it, but we will be promoting this tool because it's important to me. It's important to the fabric of the organization that I run, to really hone in on that development piece. Like I tell my clients all the time, you may fire me next year, but the tips and tools and the tactics and the strategy that we put together today is going to live beyond our relationship. And you're going to be empowered to execute against some of these things as well. And I think that's so critical, because, again, like, even though we may be lifetime friends, I may not be your lifetime publicist. but but the storytelling and your ability to connect with fans, to connect with people, to humanize yourself, um, it will live beyond our relationship, will live beyond our working relationship. So it's important that you have this in your arsenal to kind of live beyond our relationship, like I said.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I have two more questions for you, and they're easy questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what advice would you give to another young woman starting out in her career you wish someone had shared with you?
Ooh, I wish someone had shared that when I was young, the moment that I became a professional or the moment that I entered this industry to work, I was good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my perspective in each and every stage of my career in my life was necessary. Um, and I was good enough to be in those moments. I think that advice would kind of shape and mold me in a way that would empower me to speak up again, like I was speaking about earlier, to speak up again in conversations earlier. Um, but I also think that with our young people, we are always striving for the next thing, right? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
go to high school, I'm striving to go to college. I go to college, I'm striving to get a job. I get a job, I'm trying to go up the ladder. Or should I be an entrepreneur and ride that wave, or put my energy and time into those things? And so we're always looking forward, but we don't think about how necessary we are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, your perspective of what you're doing right now is so critical to me. It's so critical to the world. It's so critical to young people coming behind you. So just being able to share where you are and be happy where you are,
Mm-hmm.
I think is so valuable. And I would definitely encourage young people to just be comfortable in your skin. Like, your skill, your experience is needed somewhere at that moment, at this moment. And so you just have to be confident in who you are. And you'll grow and you'll evolve and you'll do all those things, but your perspective in this moment will um, never be as valuable as it is now, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we need you to speak up. We need to know what you're thinking. We need your creativity. We need your voice. We need you to be who you are so that we can make this world a better place. And sometimes we kind of shut our young people up, and they may not be as
Mm-hmm.
confident to kind of speak up on certain things. And I don't, I want young people to continue to have their voice, especially over these last couple of years. Just seeing how young people have showed up on so many stages is very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still a lot of things that I know our young people are just not confident and comfortable speaking to, and I empower you to do so. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is our final segment, and it is I am bringing her to the table with me. And in
Hmm.
this segment, I would like for you to give another woman her flowers through your words, who
Hmm.
has really, you recognize that without her fingerprint on your journey as a professional, you would not be where you are today.
Wow. There are so many. My goodness. Oh my goodness. There are so many. Like I said earlier, I have been extremely fortunate to have some amazing allies in this journey, and Black women have been at the heart of just developing me in ways that I couldn't even imagine. But if I had to choose one person who's had the most, or a significant, I don't want to say the most, but a
Mm-hmm.
significant imprint on who I am, I would have to play it safe. Hmm. And I'm going to go with my grandmother.
Ashley, you ain't
Listen,
nothing. You
listen,
ain't
listen.
nothing.
Listen. Yo, and let me tell you how my like So my grandmother, and she will probably kill me if by saying this. I don't know if she'll kill me, but like my grandma is a OG. She is a hardcore, like hard knocks, like grandma. I I don't want to put her business out there like that, but she has not always been above the law. She did some things in her youth to get some quick cash, maybe get some charges, small things. But what I find so amazing about, the legal side of my grandmother's journey is that she's always been a hustler. She's always been family first. Her entrepreneurial skills have always
Mm-hmm.
been on par, just maybe not, above the law. But as she gets older and I see her age gracefully, um, and she starts to speak up a little bit more because my grandmother used to be like, I'm not telling you, you figure it out. Like, grandma, what's your medical history? Why you need to be in my business? Grandma, it literally says that on the form. Like, do you have a history? Um, so she's one of those OG, old school grandmother. But as she gets older and she starts to open up about her experiences and stuff like that, I realize that she's a true trailblazer. And she sacrifices so much to this day for her family. And I think that type of culture has always existed in our family where it's like, no, we're going to love hard. We're going to encourage hard. We're going to hold our feet to the fire, but we're going to support hard. And my grandmother taught us that family first. And again, family can look like a lot of things. And sometimes it's not just about the blood connection. And so she's one of the women who, to this day, has just impressed so many things, including my relationship with the Lord, upon my life that I don't know who I would be without her kind of guiding force in my life. So,
And what's your grandmother's name?
Emma Louise.
Emma Louise. All right, Emma
Mhm,
Louise.
mhm. Emma, they call her Emma, but I call her Emma Louise.
Oh.
that's, that's, that's the name your mama gave you. That's the name I'm calling you.
Well, Ashley, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. If you could just share with everyone where they can follow you on social media. We know you're not promoting, you know, what you doing per se, but you still have a presence. And so where can people follow along?
So my personal social platforms are Ashley, Ashley, Blackwood, Blkwood. Those are my handles for Twitter, Instagram, all of those social media accounts. And then you can also follow my business at it's Sports Publicist. So that's the handle at Sports Publicist.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining me today at the In Her Words table and taking this time to stay a while um, and just have an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, Tommy. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. Always.